All right, here we go. So everyone should have their notebook out. It should be labeled week 28, please. We're in decolonization. We're going to start in India, so you can write India as your title. Keep in mind, friendly reminder, that you have a Barron's book due 2 weeks from today. This is our last Friday that we'll be together before your Barron's book is due, so please make sure you have your Barron's book. Spring break is better with a Barron's book, friends. So if you haven't bought it, what a way to celebrate your spring break freedom than buying one. So please make sure you have it next Friday, March 28th. If you do not have it in class, I will lose my damn mind. Okay, so India, here we go. We're going to start with a dude named Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Who can raise their hand and tell me who Muhammad Ali Jinnah is? Matthew.
Well, if you made a two-state plan where you wanted to have two different places for Hinduism.
And what are they called?
Pakistan.
There you go. So, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, we talked about him briefly last week. He's going to create the two-state system, which is the creation of Pakistan and the creation of India. Now, what you need to know is that in 1947, India gains its independence from Britain and immediately partitions or breaks apart and makes Pakistan and India. So in 1947, India earns its independence from Britain and immediately partitions into Pakistan and India. Now you need to be using the term partition. That is a key term when you're talking about the creation of the state of Israel and Pakistan. What does a partition mean? It means they literally build a wall and form their borders. Now, during the building of this partition, or starting the physical creation of their country, of Pakistan, 500,000 people are going to die. 10 million refugees are going to be created. Now, think about it. Their independence of India is going to happen peacefully. However, peacefully towards the very end of especially the paperwork. Remember, it starts in 1937. We finally get independence in 1947. The transition of Muslims and Hindus are going to cause tons of conflict and eventually cost 500,000 people's lives. Now, you do need to know another aspect of it. As soon as the partition is made, Pakistan and India are going to be warring. They're going to be fighting back and forth. Okay? Old hostilities die hard. Fighting over who gets what resources near the borders is going to be most of the conflict. Of course, religious as well is going to be a part. Pass the box, thank you. So, during this conflict, the United States gets involved. And who does the United States come to the aid of? India. Yes, the United States come to aid India's aid. And we decide to try to help end the fighting. We give India what? What do you got? We give them nuclear weapons. Yes, the United States gives India nuclear weapons. Why would we give India nuclear weapons in the 1950s, late 50s, early 60s? Matt?
Because Pakistan wouldn't want to fight it for that.
There you go. So, because we're trying to be peaceful by having a nuke in India, Pakistan's not going to fight that much, correct? Now think of it from Pakistan's perspective, okay? They have a born, created rival in India. Yes, they're one country, now they're two separate. The United States picked a team, picked India, now their rival has a nuclear bomb. Who's being held hostage every moment of the way? Pakistan. Because keep in mind, India hates Pakistan. Pakistan hates India. They are mutual. They hate each other. Absolutely. Now, India has a bomb that can destroy their entire country. Is that a genuine threat? Do you think that's going to create hostility? Do you think some of that hostility is going to be shared? So now, who does Pakistan have anger and hostility towards? The United States. Is that going to create some resentment? Is that going to be built upon by other interference? Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Please keep in mind that Pakistan has a very much so tumultuous relationship with the United States, and that is going to only grow over the course of American intrusion in the Middle East. Where does it start with in this specific example? With nuclear technology. Now, why did we pick India? Could have gone 50-50. I mean, I think we can all agree the United States isn't really going to leap behind a Muslim country except Saudi Arabia. Why do we jump behind Saudi Arabia? There you go. Why do we pick India? I mean, the United States isn't really super Hindu friendly. I think we can agree. Why?
Were they more advanced?
No. Nah. Why, Luke? Nah. At this point, they have a larger population. So if we're friendly with India, what are we going to sell them? Yeah, remember, they're just going to start industrializing now, post-British imperialism. So who's going to help them rebuild their country? Who's going to benefit from them rebuilding and industrializing? We are. So we picked them because of the large population. And they're like the third or second largest economy, growing economy in the world. What do you got?
Why do they need to pay?
Why? Because we're trying to help solve problems. How's that going? Not well. All right, here we go. You need to have Vietnam as your next heading. Okay, Vietnam. You need to know post-World War II, France is still holding on to Vietnam. Why? Now, the people of Vietnam are super pissed. What happened during World War I that would make them be even more pissed that they're colonized? Now, obviously, of course, they're pissed they're colonized, but what would make them super pissed that they're colonized? Marina? Yeah, the Treaty of Versailles. What about it? Absolutely. But you're getting 0 points on your AP exam until you come up with a term. Then no score, girl. Bernstein. Self-determination. So after World War I, Vietnam's like, yeah, we're going to get our independence. And then came World War II. And they're like, yeah, we're going to get our independence. And then guess what? Doesn't happen. Why? Because France does not want to give it up. Why don't you think France wants to give up Vietnam? Makes logical sense, people. What do you got?
Resources.
Resources, because they're making lots and lots of money at it. Vietnam happens to be their second most profitable colony. First one's Algeria, which they're also going to hold on to pretty hard as well. So a guy named Ho Chi Minh, which you need to know, and you should know his name already, is going to rise into power in Vietnam. He's a communist, and he is going to start a war with the French over independence. Now, Ho Chi Minh is going to use a fighting style called guerrilla warfare. Who can raise your hand and tell me what is guerrilla warfare? Moffat.
It's like surprise attacks.
Yeah, it's surprise attacks. Who created it?
Wasn't it the Native Americans?
Native Americans, yes, but who perfected it? Kate?
The U.S.
The United States. Why did the United States fight the American Revolution using guerrilla warfare, Kern?
Because they had less troops and less advanced military, so they needed to have some sort of advantage.
We were going to lose, people. We should have lost the American Revolution. We should have lost. I'm so grateful we didn't, but we should have lost. So, we, as Americans, were shooting the British on the way to the battlefield, because if we showed up on the battlefield, what was definitely going to happen to us? We were going to lose for sure. So, George Washington created what we call today guerrilla warfare. Ho Chi Minh, inspired by George Washington's tactic, is going to be like, let's do this. And why does Ho Chi Minh fight using guerrilla warfare? They're also going to lose. They're also non-industrialized. They're also at a huge militaristic disadvantage. So he starts doing guerrilla warfare. After a while, and we're not getting into crazy details here, the French are going to say, I'm out. And they leave. The French leave. However, as the French are leaving, who shows up? Vietnam. Who shows up? Jordan. The United States show up. And why does the United States show up, Jordan?
It's
Containment. And what document justifies that? There you go. There you go. The Truman Doctrine. The United States are going to use it to justify intervening in Vietnam. Lyndon B. Johnson, President Johnson, is going to be the person who is going to use the Truman Doctrine to justify invasion of Vietnam. How does it go? Who can tell me what's the outcome? What is the outcome of the Vietnam War, people? What do you got? Kern? Yeah, we lose. Well, we don't technically lose, but like if you leave a war in the middle of the war, you lose, right? Like if you're in the middle of an argument and you just walk away, guess who won? The person who's standing there, right? They win. So you need to know the United States are going to lose the war by leaving. Okay, it's not like we. Why do we lose? Why do we lose, Matt?
Because they use like guerrilla warfare and they have booby traps. And
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare in the jungle for sure. But what's the real reason why Lyndon B. Johnson and the following president, who I can't think of, is going to pull us out? Why, Luke?
Well,
Okay, there we have protests here in the United States. What piece of technology is going to empower public opinion to turn? What piece of technology is going to be used, Moffat? The television. Public opinion turns in the Vietnam War, which is why the U.S. government pulled us out of it. Public opinion turns against the war in Vietnam because of the television. Now think about it. During the Vietnam War, we're using pretty much the same technology from World War II. They're only like less than 20 years more. Okay, so we're using the same type of technology. We're doing overhead bombing. We're doing flamethrowers. We are doing chemical warfare as well. All those different things are being used. No one was saying we should not be fighting in World War II. Now they are saying. The reason is during World War II, if you wanted to get war footage, you wanted to see what was actually happening on the war front, you would go to the movies. And before your movie, they would do a newsreel and show you the bombings, the planes, the fighting, the troops, and all that stuff. Now keep in mind, this is during a total war. So who is controlling what footage we see? The United States government is. So the government are the ones filtering the information that we're able to see. Now some of the newspapers are printing stuff, but none of it is video clips, really. All of it's being filtered through the U.S. government. How often do you go to the movies, really? So you're not seeing that much news footage. With that being said, in 1960s, during Vietnam, we have a new thing called television. Well, we're in a war. Is it a total war? No. So the government's not controlling what information we're getting. Now we have television companies that are independently owned and protected under the freedom of speech. So all of a sudden, they're sending reporters and film crews to Vietnam as war reporters to report back to the United States what they're seeing. But what they're seeing are the horrors of war. So, sitting on your couch in your living room, you are seeing men, women, children being burnt alive by napalm. We see fire bombings where we destroy entire villages. And you are seeing the intimate, disgusting side of war sitting in your living room for the first time. Keep in mind, in the 1960s, do we have a lot of really gruesome battle scenes in our movies? Not really. Not in the 60s.
Oh, talking about like back then.
Yeah, like during that time. Like there's no blockbuster films, so they have really gruesome scenes. So the first things they're really seeing coming from Vietnam are really horrifying. And so people immediately sitting on their couches are like, oh no, this is wrong, which is going to promote this whole counter-revolution of the hippies and your Vietnam protests. And that's what it is. Why? Because no one's ever seen things like that sitting in their living room, and it made people genuinely uncomfortable. Which isn't the wrong thing, can we agree? Like, you should be horrified by the images coming out of Vietnam. If you watch the images that people sat on their couch watching, you should also feel genuinely uncomfortable and physically want to turn it off. That is why the counter thing happened, because of the evolution of television. Okay, Palestine. Alright, so Palestine. Now, post-World War II, Palestine was about to get its independence from the mandate system. Post-World War II, Palestine was about to get its independence from the mandate system from Britain. Who can tell me what the mandate system is? Come on, I've already talked to Moffat. Marina.
It was post-World War I after Germany decided self-determination, colonies, and they England, Britain, France, US.
That's fine.
Yeah, they split up territory.
After what empire? By the way, this is
After
beautiful.
the
Very nice. So they're going to go in and fill in this hole. So the Palestine side. Very nice, Marina. Actually, that's the best answer I've had all day for it. Nice job, Sue. Okay, so the mandate system. England, France, the United States have this territory post-World War I. You're not supposed to have any colonies anymore, so they call it a mandate. Pretty much a colony, not a colony, a mandate. So they're there taking oil. After World War II, they think they're about to get their independence. However, you don't have to write this down. I'll tell you what you need. Now, it is important for you to understand as a human being that Churchill, FDR, and the President of France all knew that the Holocaust was happening. They knew. From the moment the war broke out till before the war even started, they knew the Holocaust was happening. Hear that. Understand that. Now, with that being said, the United States are going to block Jewish refugees starting in the 1930s from coming to the United States. England is also going to do it. France is also going to do that. Okay? So much so that right before World War II broke out, Hitler closes the door to Jews right before the war, and then all the Jews trapped in Germany are essentially dead now. Yes? Right before he closed the door, one ship full of Jews from Germany sailed from Germany to the harbor of New York City. FDR said no and sent them back to Germany. There's like 3,000 Jews on that boat. All but one died in the Holocaust. So, the United States, England, and France knew what was happening. Now, you need to write down the Balfour Declaration. Balfour Declaration was signed in 1917. So that's in the midst of World War I. The Balfour Declaration, which I have already taught you, by the way. Balfour Declaration says the Jews need need their homeland back. Okay, so right before World War I, as we know, nationalism is rising in Europe and around the world. Is nationalism a good thing or a bad thing for Jews? Bad. Who can raise your hand and tell me why nationalism is a bad thing for Jews? I've already talked to these people. Someone else tell me. Sarah, why is it bad?
It's bad because it causes nations to go against enemies.
There you go. Absolutely. Perfectly said. So, nationalism is about, if I'm German, I should be surrounded by only German people. If I'm American, I should be surrounded only by Americans. Who don't have a home? So, in every country, there's Jews. So, who are our nationalistic feelings being directed to? Jews. So, in 1917, the people of Zionists are going to say, we need our homeland. Now, England, France, the United States, is anyone going to listen to it? Does anyone put any real weight to it? No? They're like, that would be nice. So, from nationalism pre-World War I to fascism, in between World War I and into World War II, how is the treatment of Jews? Terrible. It gets worse. And of course, during World War II, what officially happens? The Holocaust. Now, I just told you that England, France, and the United States all knew what was happening. We knew. We knew from start to finish. We knew where the death camps were. We knew everything. What did we do? Nothing. We actually could have invaded different places in order to help liberate some of these camps faster. Did we? No. Now, after World War II ends and they take a look at what happened, 3 million Jews are dead. They knew about it since before the war was even started. Okay? Crystal notch, that was a red flag to regular people like you and I, but the U.S. government already knew it was already kind of starting. With that being said, England, France, and the United States, how did they feel after knowing 3 million Jews died and they did nothing about it? You think they'd say pretty damn guilty? Yeah, when you see the atrocities of the Holocaust, aren't you genuinely horrified? Don't you want to do something to fix it? Yes. So that's what happened. You need to write this down. After the Holocaust, England, France, and the United States wanted to give the Jews a homeland. So, with the UN's help, they carved out of Palestine, Israel, and you need to use the word carved, out of England, France, the United States, and with the help of the UN, they are going to carve out Israel from Palestine. Now, that's what you need to write. You don't have to write what I'm saying right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like Israel, hate Israel, have no opinions on Israel. I don't care. You need to come up with an opinion about Israel. It is all over our modern day 2019 politics. Like I told you, there's bombings right now going on between Palestine and Israel. Hopefully they're stopping. Hopefully it's not going to erupt in a major war again. But this is something that you need to have an opinion about. Hopefully you heard of Congresswoman Omar's comments last week that got her in trouble. She was talking about Israel. Whether you like it, hate it, I personally don't care. You need to have an opinion on it. Because in 2020, guess what? One of the things that are going to come up? Israel. How much influence it has. Should it have more? Should it have less? Should it be there? Should it not be there? These are the types of decisions you're going to have to make as a future voter. Whether it's in the 2020 or the 2060. Who knows? These are big topics you need to have an opinion about. So I'm going to show you the Jewish side, I'm going to show you the Palestinian side, and you need to figure out where you stand. What I would do this weekend, or this week, is I would ask your parents what side they're on. Do they think Israel is a positive thing, a negative thing? Are they on the Palestinian side, Israeli side? I mean, what are their thoughts? Because it's a huge hot-button issue. And it's one that frames our American politics. So, United States, England, France feel guilty. Okay? So, with the UN's help, they carve Israel out of Palestine, which is the last thing you should have down. Now, please listen to how they do it. Now, if you're going to give a bunch of people land who just had 3 million of their own be murdered, are you going to give them a shitty piece of land or a nice piece? Nice. So what they do is they carve the territory out of Israel, out of Palestine. Why did they pick Palestine? There's 2 reasons for Palestine. Why, Bernstein?
Like ancestors.
Ancestral homeland for sure. What's the second reason they take it from Palestine? Kate?
Good like land. Like
That's not super awesome farmland. What do you got? Matt?
Is it because of like easier migration?
No, I don't care about that. Moffat?
Wasn't it still a mandate?
It's a mandate, yeah. Who controls it? Right, so they're already in control. How convenient. I already own this. Perfect. So, now, think about it. Going back to the ancestral component, please listen. So in period 1, we have our Jews living their best life in Palestine. Well, what would we call future Palestine? They get kicked out of Palestine by who? This is good review. Who kicks the Jews out of what we would call modern day Palestine? Jordan?
The Egyptians.
No, the Egyptians are not kicking them out. It's the city-states. You do know this is on your test on May 16th, right? Can anyone give me a city-state in this region? Sumer, yes. The Sumerians and what do you got? Babylonians are going to kick the Jews out of where we would call Palestine today. So the Assyrians and the Babylonians are the ones going to be doing this. Now today, if you look at where Assyria and Babylonians are, it's Syria and Iraq. Is that Palestine? Hello? Is that the descendants? No. So they get kicked out of their homeland, okay? So they're just kind of wandering around the desert, and Egypt is like, whew, I see you. So they go over and they capture him. And then they bring him back to Egypt and they force him into slavery for a couple hundred years. Yes? Okay? Then a guy says, let my people go. This is Moses. And he leads them from Egypt. He brings them to the Red Sea and he says, move, Red Sea. And the Red Sea parts. And then he walks to the other side. And then on the other side, he's like, gotta climb a mountain. So he climbs Mount Sinai and he goes to the top. He's like, hey! And he comes back down and he has his laws. And then once he gets the laws, he says, we are the chosen people, go! And then the Jews start dispersing all throughout Europe. Right? Yes? Okay. That being said, the Jews are going to start finding their homelands, and no homeland, but they're going to be all over the place. So, here we are. In 1947, you need to know that 1947 is when Israel was created. It's also convenient, it's the same year as what? Pakistan. Pakistan and Israel created the same year. You should be very grateful the historians did that for you. That is very kind of them. It makes it easier to remember. So here we are. Now, did the Palestinian ancestors kick the Jews out? No. So as soon as the Jews kicked out, the Palestinian ancestors move in. They're like, oh, look at this open land. How convenient. So, for the 1,000 years from there, they've been living there. Right? Living, dying, growing things, eating things, dying there, making babies, fishing, doing whatever people do. So, 1947, the United States, England, and France are going to clear out Israel. They draw the border, and they're like, we're going to give them this land. It is the best farmland. It has the most access to the Mediterranean Sea. and it is of the most valued land in the area. So what they do is they go door to door, and every Palestinian is cleared out of the boundaries. Then they build up these massive walls. Okay? Some of the walls are concrete, some of the walls are chain link with huge barbed wire on them. Every single Palestinian who is there is now out of the country, and then Jews are starting to move in droves, and they are now living in the city in the country of Israel. Okay? I think we can all agree, after the horrors of the Holocaust, that makes a lot of sense we gave it to them, yes? Like, well, shit. Their anti-Semitism is everywhere. Let them have their own country. It makes sense. They felt guilty. Makes logical sense. Now let's think about it from the Palestinian idea. We already talked about, did the Palestinians remove the Jews in period 1? No. They happen to move in. Oh man, look at this farmland. This is pretty great. So they end up living there thousands of years. Thousands of years. Living, dying, their ancestors in the backyard. Birth, life, death, ancestors in the backyard. Birth, life, death, ancestors in the backyard. And World War I happens. After World War I, the British come in and take over, and you're like, shit. Okay, World War II happens. You're like, I'm going to get my independence now. The British are like, your independence, actually, we're going to clear this area. So, you've been living in the state of where Israel is today. Your family's been buried here for thousands of years. Your only skills, your businesses, everything you have is in this area, and you've been doing it for thousands of years. Then the United States, England, and France tell you you have to leave, and they will use force if necessary. I have 500 years of ancestors back here. What do you mean I have to leave? Now think about it. If China came to the United States today and said, you have to leave the United States right now, how would that go? Not well. Could you imagine? We've only been here 300 years. We've only been here 300 years, but what is the first thing we're going to say? My children were born here. My father was born here. My ancestors were born here. This is where they live. This is where they died. This is where their businesses are. This is how I know how to make money. I don't know how to make money in China. I don't know how to make money anywhere else. This is where I'm supposed to be. Would you agree? Is that how you would feel? So here we go. The United States, England, and France are going to push all these Palestinians out. Now, all these Palestinians who've been living in the place where their ancestors have been thousands of years, who did not remove the Jews in the first place, so they're really crimeless at this point, they're going to start fighting back. Now, keep in mind, all of these other Middle Eastern countries are now dealing with refugees. All of these Palestinians are dispersing into all these other countries. Does refugees cause problems for governments? Yes. Does it cause big problems in 47? Yes. Does it cause huge problems in 2019? Yes. So all of these refugees are being dispersed throughout this whole territory. Palestine does get two little sections. They get cut off. They have two little sections on the map, and they have terrible farmland. They have very little access to the Mediterranean Sea. So is their economy supposed to thrive? No. It is not designed for them to be successful. Now, they do get some compensation, but is it enough to say you lost everything, your ancestors' graves will never be touched by you again, and you get some slight compensation? Now, keep in mind, as soon as Palestine gets kicked out, what are they doing? They're fighting back. Wouldn't you fight back? Absolutely. They start fighting back. So the United States, England, and France, of course, are already involved because they're the ones who cleared the state of Israel. Guess what we give Israel? Nukes. Why would we give Israel nukes? Johnny?
So Palestine wouldn't want to fight back.
So Palestine wouldn't want to fight back. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you are Palestine. You just lost your homeland. You've done nothing wrong. You didn't originally kick the Jews out. You're fighting for your homeland. Your ancestors have been dying here for thousands of years. You just lost, and now the United States has given Israel nuclear technology. Now, do you feel like it's already set up against you? Yes. How do you think the rest of the region feels? Well, absolutely. We're the only people in the whole Israel's the only place with nuclear power, so are we holding the rest of the region hostage? Now think about it. All these other countries that are in the Middle East, for instance, are now dealing with all these tons of refugees. Why are the refugees there? The United States put them there, right? We displaced them all. Second thing is, all of these Middle Eastern countries now have a new power in the region. And who's that power? Well, Israel, who is propped up by the United States, England, and France. Does that cause problems on politics? Absolutely. Do you think the United States is going to interfere with all these other countries lining the borders of Israel and trying to put pro-Israel leaderships in place? Yeah, because we've made an investment into Israel and we would hate to lose it. So who's right? I hope that you can agree the Palestinians have been screwed. Can we agree? That is their homeland. They've been forced out. I hope that you see that the Jews, holy shit, their lives have been miserable since period 1, yes? And that they deserve to have their homeland. I hope that you see both sides of this is a very complex thing. Now, that is a very oversimplification of Israel. There is bad blood on both sides. Israel has done some really shady shit. So has Palestine. And it is a very, very big problem. However, you need to start forming an opinion whether you think Israel is a good thing, bad thing, because it is going to shape our politics moving forward continuously. Because who is right there propping up Israel every step of the way? The United States. Now, I will tell you, in 1947, in the charter that creates Israel, in order to get some agreement with Palestine, not that they ever agreed to this, don't ever think that. One of the things that we did in order to appease some of Palestine's things, is that we agreed that we would not make Jerusalem, by the way, Jerusalem, the holiest city for 3 religions. What are the 3 religions that call Jerusalem one of the holiest cities? Come on, people. What is it, Ahmad?
Judaism, Christianity, Islam.
There you go. So, the holiest city, 3 of the largest religions in the world. Well, Judaism is one of the largest, but now belongs to Israel. It's always belonged to Palestine. Okay, do you think that's a point of contention? Yes. So, Palestine said, we do not want Jerusalem to be a political center, because it's a religious center. You shouldn't mix politics and religion, and they knew that. So, in 1947, we decided not to make Jerusalem the capital city of Israel. We made it Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv is the capital out of respect for the Palestinians, because we didn't want to politicize religions, right? We're already having enough struggles. That was one thing they definitely didn't want. So, 2018. What happened? I know, but 2018 is when it happened. Thanks, boss. 2018, Donald Trump is going to move the capital of Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Now, the Israelis have always wanted it to be Jerusalem. Why? Because it's the largest, most important city of all religions in the world, especially Judaism, and they're a Jewish state. Okay, so that makes sense that they wanted it. How did the Palestinians feel about it? Absolutely horrific. 150,000 people died. Well, because they moved the capital, huh? They've been skirmishing forever since then. They've been shooting bullets. Since 2018, there's skirmishes. There's tons of dead all throughout. Yes. Yes, they've been fighting. They've been skirmishing, but they're not doing rockets, which makes yesterday's attack a big deal. Does that make sense? That for the first time, they're doing aerials, and that's a big deal. But they've been shooting and killing each other for a long time. They have skirmishes. After Tel Aviv was announced, there was a huge riot right on the border, and you're going to see that it caused tons of deaths. Okay, so what?
How did Donald Trump have the power to move their capital?
Because the United States is going to recognize Jerusalem. We're the only country in the world that recognizes it, except for like 3 other countries. And that caused political reverberations throughout the whole region. So, whether you love, hate Donald Trump, it's what happened. We have political chaos that happened because of it. 2019, last night, we have bombings happening. Israel is not going away. It's only become more and more of a big deal here in the United States. You need to start forming an opinion. Who's right in this situation?
Sure.
Well, I know. I'm not asking you to tell me, but like that's what you need to think. Like, obviously, it's a complicated issue. I just simplified it very briefly for you. But it's something you need to kind of start thinking. I mean, a lot of people, and I've always kind of grown up with this whole idea that, you know, Israel is like this great place and it's perfect, we got to protect it, which is the United States mantra, correct? Hopefully you see a little bit more of the Palestinian component to it. And hopefully your heart kind of breaks a little bit for the Palestinians and understands a little bit more 50-50. So hopefully you see that. So a couple things you do need to know. That Israel was created in 1947. If you don't have that down, you need to know that. You need to know it's called a partition that divides Israel from Palestine. Okay? Those are the big things. You need to know that England, France, the United States, with the help of the UN, are going to get Israel for the Jews. Goodbye. Perfect timing.
Heavy class.
This is so